Hi, and welcome to the Glam Reaper podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Muldowney, aka the Glam Reaper herself. Today on the podcast, we are going to be talking to a super interesting guest, and I am going to leave it at that. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, take it away. Irad is a gentleman who connected with me on LinkedIn and very fascinating has a charity called Seven Chairs, which I want to know where the history of that name came from. But you focus very much on grief and grief support. Am I right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Irad, you take it away. Tell me what it is that you do.
Great. So first, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to
No
be
problem.
here. And yeah, as you mentioned, we're a startup actually that's aiming to end the loneliness in the world. Um, and
Big ask.
yeah, definitely. And the thing is that when people are facing grief, for example, if they're not just facing the grief and the loss of the loved one, they're also facing the loneliness that comes with it, the feeling that nobody really understands what they're going through, and even people that even their family, friends sometimes don't really get what they're going through because they had a special relationship with the person that they lost, with their loved ones. And that's where we come in and we connect people that are dealing with the same life issue, same life challenge as the others. For example, grief over child, and we connect parents to a group, small groups of anywhere between 6 to 8 people that are meeting on our platform weekly, and the groups are led by professional facilitators. And if you kind of look at the way we live now, most of our social connections are based on social networks, which I think are anti-social networks because they're uh, taking our relationship and kind of it's a redundance of the relationship. And we could have had this. You could have kind of read. I spoke 1,000 times about what we're doing, and you could have read it to the website, but still the two of us chose to be on the same place on the same time, talk to each other, have a relationship, and have a meaningful connection as opposed to just communication, just sending email or posting on Facebook. And that's what we're fixing because we know that loneliness comes from lack of human connection. So we work on building a human connection. So yeah, we started with grief, focusing on grief. We gave support to thousands of people, connected thousands of people, mostly, as you can tell by my accent, in Israel or in the States. Um, and we leverage technology to find the right group for the right people. Um, and we leverage technology to help the group facilitators to be the best group facilitators that they can in various ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and you made a lot of points there that I think are just scratching the surface because they do say that as we grow more connected as a world, we grow more disconnected, and I think the tragedy of COVID-19 and the pandemic that's ripping through the world at the moment has proven that and shown us that while technology can be a support system, it absolutely resolutely does not take away the fact of physical connection with people. And even as you said, us talking today, which um I as a I work in the funeral community, and a lot of people when they meet me, I've been on the radio, I've been on TV and things like that, and honestly I'm actually quite a shy person, and this
Mhm.
podcast has been a brainchild for the last 2 years, but I just don't like the camera being on me, or I don't, I like to talk to people. I'm much more of a converser, and I realized that there in what I do, exactly to your point, it leaves so many people bereft and lonely and wanting more of a connection. And I even find myself, I mean, I would nearly say as a memorial planner, I become people's best friend for the intimate time I work with them. I hold their hand, I've hugged, I've held people as they've broken down. It's a very humbling and incredibly rewarding career for me anyway. But one of the things that I wanted when I did this podcast was it had to be a podcast as opposed to just a blog, which I had been doing for years. But with a blog, you just feel like you're talking to, it's like Dear Diary or whatever,
Yeah.
And even with the podcast, I mean, if it was just me in a room on my own, it could be just me talking to myself, which isn't
Yeah.
unusual. But I wanted this to be both audio and visual because I want people to get a sense of it's two people talking to each other as opposed to just two people giving their opinions into your ears. And some people are audio, some people like to see things, whatever. um it's interesting actually that we're recording this in December, and as an Irish person, I'm living in New York, and I'm stuck in New York effectively because I can't go home to my family. And we have a new niece that just came into the world last week,
Wow.
and honestly, I'm a mess. I don't mind saying it to the world. I'm an absolute mess. I hear any Christmas song on the radio, I see any reminder of back home in Dublin and it's Christmas, and I burst into tears. I got a package in the post last night from my little nephew. He's 2.5, and he's like Van Gogh or Da Vinci, I don't know, Michelangelo, his paintings anyway. And I broke down crying, and I feel like I'm just crying constantly right now. And it's probably, living alone in New York City, one of the busiest cities in the world, and yet here I am, absolutely feeling completely isolated. And it is. I have a massive network of friends and colleagues and lots of people I can turn to, but sometimes you do feel like I can't. Is it appropriate for me to say this to people? I'll even decline loads of invitations just because I might not feel it's appropriate in the time, or I don't want to bring everybody else's buzz down and stuff. So I think what you're doing is incredible, and it's such a good resource for people. Tell me, how do people utilize your web? It's a website, not an app, right?
It is a both app and a website.
Okay,
So
so tell me how, if I'm, say, for example, if I have a family this weekend that I'm working with that maybe have lost a spouse,
mhm.
how can I facilitate them in sending them to Seven Chairs?
So that totally connects to our vision. At the end of the day, you're living in New York. You grew up in Dublin. You probably when anywhere you're living, when you search the web, you search Google, right? You use Google. When you called a cab, you probably use Uber or any other taxi app.
Yeah.
But when someone is in life crisis, there is nowhere to go. There's like there isn't a place on the web that you can go to and have a meaningful connection, and that's what we are building. So answering your question, it's just they just need to kind of log in into Circles. It's circlesapp.com, and
It's
then they
what
can
we'll leave all the
Circles.
links down below, and
Perfect,
we'll have all the
perfect.
links. Yeah.
Great. So, and they just need to click, and we help them find the group. And that's where technology comes in place because we can use technology to find the right people for you based on age, based on the situation that you're dealing with. And for example, a mother won't be assigned to the same group as a daughter, for example. They will have different groups because they are dealing with different situations, and their peers are others that they have different kind of peers group, and that's where technology comes in place. I can tell you a story of one of our colleagues. He had cancer, and he was living in LA, and he was around 40, and and he's a wealthy man. He can afford whatever mental health service he wants. But and he was looking online for a support, and he found the only thing that he found was an online groups. He found a group support. It was a pre-COVID. It's a pre-COVID story. So he drove an hour, went into a room, and he found himself with 70-year-old ladies sitting in the same room with him, and he was like three of them, and he was like, it said it's so broken, like it's unbelievable that I'm 40 and I can't find people that are dealing with cancer, and
Mhm.
that's where we kick in, basically.
Okay,
Uh,
so somebody can come to the website or the app and search specifically for what they're looking for. Is it like just drop down menus
it's
or
a
you?
questionnaire. They actually fill a
Okay,
questionnaire, and we help them navigate through the questionnaire. We ask them questions, and by learning about them, we kind of find the right group for them with the right set of people for them. Yeah,
Okay. So at the end, so it's like a questionnaire, almost like similar to when you apply for online coaching or grief, or not grief, online coaching or therapy, and you fill out this questionnaire, and you get matched with a group, though not a person.
exactly. And the thing is that
Yeah.
it's hours away from signing up. So we always have an opening for new people in any kind of segment within maximum a day. So they will always find people to speak with and to meet with. And on top of that, we have a daily meeting for open to everyone, 7 p.m. EST. People, and it's a free meeting, free sessions around grief, and people can facilitated by a mental health professional. And people can just log in. They can coming whenever they want, every weekday. Um, yeah, and it's a free service to give them a sense of that they are not alone in the world, and there are a lot of people. And I can tell you, if I was part of one meeting, and it was so moving because it started with four ladies joined the meeting, and each one of them experienced a different loss. But within 10 minutes, the four of them were crying. Wow, there was crying from both, pain, but relief as well.
Mm.
And all of them started with their cameras off, so nobody could see each other. But by the end of the meeting, like 10 minutes before the meeting's ending, all of them turned their cameras on, and it was kind of like the excitement in the room was amazing, and all of them changed phone numbers and emails, and they're connected with each other, and they're still like um,
Connected.
connected. Yeah, which
Yeah.
is
And how do you facilitate these group meetings? Is it through Zoom? Is it through your own platform? How does that work?
yeah. So it's through our own platform, but we do use the capacities of Zoom. So, but it's through our own platform. I'll give you an example. Why do we insist on doing it our way? Because, for example, when you sit in a room in a group, now we're talking. I can look at you, but I can also look at myself, which is pretty strange. Usually, when you meet people, you don't have the image of yourself on top of the person that you speak with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and that gives it's a small feature, but yet it gives a different experience, and that's what we're aiming to build, the ultimate experience of a group online, and to really 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 facilitate relationship between people that can really support each other and building the group together. So yeah, that's the reason why we are using.
And not to be a Debbie Downer, but how do you prevent? Obviously, with COVID, we've all seen the dangers of these Zoom meetings and people crashing them. Now, a grief support group is obviously a very tender and emotional moment in time for those people. So, how can you prevent somebody from crashing that? And there are unfortunately sick people out in the world, so um people want to do bad things to already hurting people. So how can you prevent that? How do Seven Shares prevent that from happening?
So I think that's kind of for us, it's the most important thing. At the end of the day, what we are doing is we're building safe places for people, and if they won't be safe, we are kind of it's counterproductive, because, as you said, people are hurting. Um, so first of all of our system is protected, and people can't join a meeting because it's not an open rooms that people can join, except from the everyday meeting that I mentioned. But we have a gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is the group facilitator, so nobody can get in unless the group facilitator allows them in. And in any time, the group facilitator could just throw people out and stop their participation, because there aren't any unsupervised meetings. All our meetings are supervised. The group facilitators know each other. It's small groups, it's intimate group, it's anywhere between 6 to 8 people. So they know each other. So it's kind of like, think of a room and everybody knows each other. Then even if someone that you don't know gets in, like everybody noticed him, and there was like,
Of course, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Who's the person who just arrived in the back? Is there a fee for this?
Yes. So one of our kind of I would say part of our mission is to have to give the best mental health services as accessible as possible. So accessible could be, using the internet, and then even someone from rural Texas can join a meeting on one hand, and also pricing wise. So the cost is $15 per week, $60 per month, which is 10% of any other mental health service you can consume out there. And that's the reason we can do it, is because we're using groups. So the cost splits between the all the members, and that's what makes it accessible for the people. And that's actually when we designed the way we want to provide services to people and kind of like fight loneliness. We knew that first of all we want to be a startup, because when you're a startup, you're on the kind of, you can provide, you can grow fast, and you're not dependent, as opposed to foundation, or being dependent on donations. So once we will have a solid business model which is accessible to the people on one hand, but still viable and scalable, then we can grow fast. And at the end of the day, we are imagining, the mother of a child in Australia, and the father in Belgium, and the grandmother in Virginia. We want to reach each one of them as fast as we can. There's a real sense of urgency for us in the work. Every morning that we wake up, we understand that there's another morning that we didn't provide services to people that are still suffering in the world. That's what keeps us moving.
I mean, it sounds fantastic, and it definitely sounds like something I know a lot of the families I work with absolutely need. And even if it's for $60 a month, I mean, that's what the price of it's not even, is it even 10 coffees these days?
Yeah.
The price just keeps going up every time I go to Starbucks. For the price of 10 coffees to have that group. Now, do you have a certain, for example, I know people that may get busy, they may just want this as a backup, they may want to be a member of the group to dip in once a month, they may not want to kind of go every week. Do you have a criteria or anything at the moment?
So it's kind of a personalized program, and they build it with the group facilitator. So it's kind of setting expectations. But the thing about the group, and that's why we encourage members to come every week, is because it's not just for you. You're coming for yourself to get support, but you need to remember that every time that you show up for a group, you actually provide support to the other members that came. So that's
Yeah.
something that the codependence here is, it works both ways. So so we do accept people not coming every week, and we know, there's a lot of things that are going on. But we do expect, first of all, people to let the group facilitator know about it, and also to kind of like and let the other members know. And remember that people are depending on you in that way,
Hmm.
and you can really help
Yeah.
people. And that's the charm in a
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, in many ways, it's a beautiful sentiment because I know a lot of grieving families that I've worked with where they might not show up for themselves, but they'd show up for somebody else. And I think that's a lot of people these days, is that I'll do for somebody else that I won't necessarily do for myself. And so that's, yeah, that's actually a very important part of it, and the fact that it is a group therapy. And how many members are active at the moment, or do you have that information, or
Yeah, we
are you
do. We
still
do
growing?
have the information, and we provide service to hundreds of people
Wow.
every week. And accumulated, we served over 5,000 people during the few months that we've been around. And I can tell you that the demand i- is unbelievable. Like in terms of
Yeah.
the things that the people are facing, and we're getting requests for group, not just for grief. We're getting for depression, anxiety, loneliness. People that are dealing with any kind of chronic disease, cancer, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's that's interesting that you say that because like when I decided to do this podcast, while I might work in the funeral community, I didn't want it to be a podcast about death. And so that's why it's very much about love, life, and loss, because all three of those work in tangent, and it can be the loss of a spouse. And that can be due to divorce, due to death, due to separation, it can illness. There's so much loss of a job. We deal with so many losses through life, not just life itself. That I think it's so important for us to talk about it and also not judge each other. I mean, I did a whole TED talk about exactly that topic, about the loss of my dog. And if anybody hasn't seen it, they should watch it. It's only 5 minutes,
Yeah,
but
I did. It was amazing.
thank you. But it's the amount of people who've reached out to me and say, "Oh my God, that totally resonated with me, and I did not think you were going the direction you were going." Um, because it's such a, I don't want to say frowned upon, because it's not frowned upon by the pet community, but outside of that, comparing the loss of a dog to the loss of any human life is just sacrilegious in so many circles. And so I do think it's important for people to get the support they need in whatever circles they need it from. So I absolutely think what you're doing is incredible, and I can only believe that it's going to go from strength to strength, because unfortunately, and especially this year, we are highlighting even more the losses that we're all suffering. I mean, there's job loss, financial loss, illnesses, death, it's loss of friendships. I, for example, even in living in New York, I don't know how many of my friends have moved back home to Ireland permanently. So my entire social circle has changed, as well as my job, as well as my financial situation, as well as the lack of going to home to for a hug from my dad or whatever it might be. Um, so, and can I ask, especially considering the start, and we will come back to, I want you to tell me about the what's happening at Christmas, which I don't think this will be aired in time, but I think we should record it anyway, and so whether we use it or not, or somehow we can at least talk about it. But before we get into that, considering at the start where we were talking about how technology is both bringing us together and separating us, disconnecting us, because I check in on Facebook and okay, I've told 100 people that I'm alive and good. Um, do you foresee, Irad, any future where you'll have this as physical communities worldwide?
So definitely, I think at the end of the day, we need to leverage technology to kind of ignite human connection
Yeah,
and make and connect people. But at the end of the day, there is no kind of it's. I see it as a ladder. So you climb the ladder, but at the end of the day, if you want to reach the top is human connection, face to face. But having said that, I think we as a startup, as a company, as a movement, what we want to really do is kind of help people connect. And we saw it in so many groups. I can tell you about one group here in Israel. Israel is not that big. It's kind of like it's smaller than the state of New York, um, but we had a group of people that caregivers for cancer patients. And after the sixth meeting, one of the members, her spouse died, and all the group on the seventh meeting drove 2 hours to meet her. All they came all together to her house with the group facilitators, and the meeting was in her home. So that's one example. Another example is
that's so
again,
powerful. Oh my
yeah, yeah.
God.
Women with breast cancer, that's kind of one of them went through an operation, and she was in a meeting while lying. The operation was in the morning. In the afternoon, she was lying in the hospital, participating in a group meeting dedicated just for her after the operation. So yeah, so I think technology again, it's kind of it's a ladder. We climb the ladder, but we were like, everybody's down there. We need to get everybody on the ladder, connect again, and get up there and be together with
Absolutely.
meaningful connection, spending real time like we do right now in conversation, in interaction, as opposed to texting and so on.
Hmm. And it's so easy to fire off a text to 20 people saying the same thing, or sending an email, group email to everybody. But um, while there's definitely a place for all the WhatsApp groups and the Facebooks and the LinkedIn and the even TikTok and all of those, they shouldn't replace physical connection, and emotional connection. They should just supplement it, really. And it's something I try and use social media for, is if I'm going on a trip, for example, well, I know from staying in touch with all of these people through the social media that, oh, I can reach out to X, Y, and Z and hopefully meet them. Whereas without social media, I wouldn't have had that. Those are the type of conversations I have with my parents when they wonder what's the point in having 850 friends on Facebook. There's a certain amount, you have to keep private. Some people do, as we say back home in Ireland, air their dirty laundry all over social media, which, I mean, I guess that's their therapy. But um, yeah, it's definitely, as long as it's used in the appropriate way. And I mean, those two stories are just, they'd send shivers up my spine. Like, that's a really powerful thing. Seven strangers traveling over 2 hours for somebody that they were estranged from, that they didn't know.
And on top of that, it was a chat group. It even wasn't a video group. That means that they
Wow.
just texted each other for an hour every week for 6 weeks, and then the relationship was so intimate that they felt compassion and they felt
Yeah,
that they need to go and be with her. So it was literally the first time that they met. Um,
that's incredible. And I'd
yeah,
say the bond is still massive
yeah,
there.
yeah. It's kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. Now, do they take the group off your app and off the website and sort of do their own thing? And is that something you encourage, or do you encourage people to sort of maintain, obviously with the facilitator and stuff?
So yeah, we do kind of encourage people to connect, and if you want people to connect, you can't control the connection. So we definitely
Yeah.
allow people to connect and take off the connection off the platform. The platform is not, again, it's not a communication platform. What we offer is a facilitated process. So when you actually pay not for the technology, you pay for the matching services, and you mostly pay for the group for the facilitation. And in our vision, the platform will be open to groups that are not facilitated, and they won't be charged. So that's kind of the way we see our platform evolve. But it always will be around human connection, and we definitely encourage people to build relationship, to meet, to talk. We want to be there for them, but once they are not lonely anymore, they can kind of continue with their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine you might even evolve into becoming a dating website. I can imagine, there's people you've seen, there's been movies written about it where people meet in various different meetings, where they're going through similar things in life and develop a connection that can turn into a romantic and loving connection, especially when both have lost spouses, maybe, or children. And as we know, the loss of a child is incredibly painful and hard on any marriage. And so, yeah, I can imagine there could be a few seven-chair weddings in the next decade or so. You never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Where did the name come from?
So that's something that I wanted to spend a little bit time on. So the first of all, we launched our new brand, and now we're no longer seven chairs. We're now circles. Yeah,
Circle.
it happened just
Okay.
now,
Okay.
and yeah, so it's kind of like breaking news.
Okay.
Um,
So seven chairs is now circled, not
yeah.
seven circles. Okay.
And the reason we call it seven chairs is because we realized that kind of the magic number of a group is 7 people. So that's kind of why we call it 7 chairs. But we realized that in order to change the world and to be big, we want to talk about circles as opposed to chairs, because circles kind of give you a sense of equality. Everybody is equal to each other. Everybody's sitting in a kind of a round circle. And having said that, our logo is not round. It's kind of a twisted round circle, because we know that all of us are different as well, and all circles are different. So and that's the magic. Like you go into a room with 6 people and there's a certain dynamic, and then if you go to another room with different 6 people, then there's a different dynamic, and that's the magic, basically.
Thank you for listening to the Glam Reaper podcast. Our goal is to celebrate human beings and all of our unique stories. So get in touch and share with us your story. Email us at glamreaperpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for showing up. Until next time, take care.